Welcome to the Inside Story. I'm Billy Hallowell, and I'm joined today by Ian Giatti of the Christian Post to break down a very, very complicated and interesting story happening down in North Texas. How you doing today, Ian?
I'm well, Billy. How are you?
I am doing well. Okay, there's a lot going on here, and I want to start with you have the U.S. Department of Justice opening this investigation into this proposed Muslim community development. It's in North Texas, and let's just start first before we get into that investigation. What is this proposed Muslim community at the center of so much controversy?
Yeah, so this story has been kind of ongoing for the last, I want to say, last couple months, since maybe late March, early April. And it all started when, really on social media, essentially, this idea, these plans for a massive, roughly 400-acre compound in, a rural, unincorporated area of North Texas, was proposed by a mosque that's located in Plano, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas, called the East Plano Islamic Center. They call it EPIC for short. And so what this plan was essentially to buy this 400-acre piece of land and build a massive Muslim-centric compound with a huge mosque at the center, big homes, shopping malls, schools, all the things you would need for a community with this kind of mega mosque at the center of it. And this, raised a lot of eyebrows. It was unclear exactly why they chose this location. The location is, about 40 miles northeast of Dallas. It's a rural area. There's like one Baptist church in the entire area. And it was just unclear as to why the plan would be to build this massive, project here in was essentially the middle of nowhere of North Texas, and so that drew the attention of lawmakers, least of all, not least of all, Governor Greg Abbott. And so, over the course of many weeks, there have been back and forth between the attorneys and lawmakers, and a lot of questions have been raised. And so, this has been this ongoing conversation about what this project is, whether it will move forward. And right now, it seems to be at kind of a standstill.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers here, right? Because you have legitimate concerns that people might have over different issues, pertaining to the law, which we'll get into in a moment. But then you have religious liberty and religious freedom issues, right? This is a complex scenario. Let's get into how our Muslim leaders responded, because not only is Texas investigating, as we've noted here, but also the U.S. Department of Justice opening this investigation. How are the Muslim leaders responding to that?
Well, their whole thing is, the idea that religious discrimination is happening. They've already flatly refused that. They actually have, from what I understand, changed the language that was originally kind of on the project's website and on the all the literature that was going out. It was first billed as kind of like a Muslim friendly or Muslim only, essentially, compound. They've eliminated all that language. They've replaced it with the word inclusive, for example. But the issue originally began when the Department of Justice got involved after Senator John Cornyn, basically, put up a flag and alerted the federal government, and got the attention of Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice. His concerns were that this compound would discriminate against Christian folks, Jewish folks, non-Muslim citizens in Texas, and his concerns were that this was a plan that was rife with potential religious discrimination. Another concern was what the implementation of what is known as Sharia law. It's this Muslim religious law that's practiced by Muslims, around the world. But essentially, the concern was that this might be applied in this proposed compound, and it would essentially indemnify the compound from adhering to Texas state law or perhaps even federal law. So there's all these legal concerns. There's religious discrimination concerns, and this has raised questions from now the federal government, the state government, and there are a number of Texas ongoing investigations as well. not only into the compound, but actually that have now kind of leaked into the Islamic Center in Plano itself. And so there's a lot of red tape going on, which indicates that at least for the near term, there probably won't be any movement going forward.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's talk about the funeral home issue. Back in March, you covered this. This particular mosque at the center of this, correct me if I'm wrong, they were being investigated and tell us where the status of that is based on a funeral home that they were apparently running. Can you break that part of it down for us?
Yeah. So my understanding is that, and this was based solely, I think, on Attorney General Ken Paxton's uh, press release, which he didn't give a lot of information, but he did say that they were involved in running basically an illegal funeral home operation. So the details of that are very sparse. It's unclear what exactly they were doing. However, we do know that Muslim law requires certain steps to be taken when you bury a body that may differ from Texas state law. And so my sense is that that's what the investigation is concerning, but there's not a lot of information, to be honest, about what specific violations may have potentially occurred.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much here. I mean, where does this go next at this point?
Well, I don't know. I think I like I said, I think we're kind of at a standstill. I think these investigations are going to have to run their course, both with the Texas state investigations as well as the federal government's. And then depending on where that all shakes out, that'll give us a better sense of what, if any, future this project may have. I can say there are a number of other similar type projects that have also been reported on in and around North Texas. And those two, because of the status of this particular project, are probably likely going to be put on hold. But the bigger issue is that there was this flood of reports, about a month and a half ago, that these things were going on that I don't think many people, even inside Texas, much less outside of the state, really were aware of going on. And so that's brought some much needed public awareness. And now it's going to be a matter of what the legal ramifications are, if any. As you spoke of, what the religious liberty concerns are, if any, and then seeing where it all goes.
Yeah, so help people. We've talked about this and we've brought it up here in this conversation, but just so people understand both sides of this, let's just briefly break it down. From the side of the government, what are the very specific issues that they are concerned that we know of that they believe, when you're launching probes like this, the assumption is that you assume something nefarious is going on. What are the things, just to recap them as we come to a close here, that have the government so concerned that they've launched multiple at different levels investigations now into not only the mosque but the community that they are proposing?
I think the thing that, let's just start at the top here. I think the federal government, the Department of Justice, got involved after Senator Cornyn raised these questions of religious discrimination. So the idea that that something would be built that would involve, getting permits, for example, for building homes. So involving, taxpayer operations, taxpayer funds, regulated by the state, and then at the same time discriminating on the basis of religion would obviously pose a problem for all sorts of First Amendment, other constitutional questions. And so I think that was the big issue for the Department of Justice. For the state of Texas, my understanding is there's a whole host of different concerns they had. Like we talked about the funeral service operation. I think there's like permit issues. All those kinds of things are really at the core of the state government investigations. And so there's so much red tape that I think right now the idea that this will see the light of day is probably probably a good question. I don't think it's going to happen, but nevertheless, it's going to take a while to get all this sorted out.
Yeah, and we will continue to monitor this story as it unfolds. Are there any other details you feel we need to know about this that maybe we haven't covered because it's so multifaceted?
Um, you know, I would just say I think what's happened is that I personally attended a hearing at the county office on this about a month ago when the first kind of news kind of broke, and I have to tell you, Billy, the turnout, the voter turnout, citizens coming to their government and saying, "Hey, we don't want this in our area, in our state," was so overwhelming. There were a couple of people that showed up that were in favor, and that's part of the process too. But just the response to come and petition your government and have your voice heard, we get, I think, so sometimes, especially as journalists, we maybe become a little bit jaded by the idea that, well, there, you know, is the government listening? Are our elected officials responding to the concerns of the electorate? And I think watching that happen in real time was, regardless of what you feel about the issue, it was encouraging because people do have the right to stand up, to make their voices heard, to tell lawmakers exactly where they stand. And, that's at the heart of our republic. And I think that's just a great reminder that, look, people can have their voices heard if they stand up and organize.
Well, we will leave it at that today. Ian, appreciate your time.
Thank you, Billy.
Everyone else, make sure you head on over to the Christian Post, and we'll be back next week with another episode of The Inside Story. We'll see you then.